Today on the program, interesting story. The University of Washington published a study that said cross-sex hormones for kids is very helpful for children with gender dysphoria. The problem is the study didn't actually say that, but the coverage they received from their false reporting was received so favorably, they didn't want to tell anyone what the study actually said once they realized it was an error. We'll tell you all about it today a little bit later. Also, Boston Children's Hospital has gotten a lot of attention for removing the healthy sex organs of children, but it turns out they are far from the only ones doing it. We'll tell you what other hospitals around the country are engaged in that tragic behavior and abuse of children. Also, did the FBI tell Facebook not to share information about Hunter Biden's laptop? That's what FBI founder Jeff Zuckerberg seemed to suggest in a conversation with Joe Rogan. We'll talk to a former FBI agent about whether this is something the FBI would be expected to involve itself with, or if these are election shenanigans. All of that coming up a little bit later. But first, last Friday on Washington Watch, we remember the 13 service members who were killed in a suicide attack last year in Afghanistan. We learned from Congressman Jim Banks that a top priority of any future Republican Congress will be investigating how the military evacuation from the region was botched so badly. U.S. Representative Lisa McClain has introduced legislation to posthumously award the Congressional Gold Medal to the 13 service members who were killed. And Congresswoman McClain joins us now to discuss this and some other news from Washington this week as well. She serves on the House Armed Services Committee, the House Education and Labor Committee, and represents Michigan's 10th District. Congresswoman McClain, welcome to Washington Watch.
Hey, thanks for having me. How are you today?
Good. We are thankful for you to stopping by and also for this important step that you've taken. We want to thank you for the legislation you've introduced to honor these fallen veterans. What did you learn about these men and women as you prepared this?
You know, there was a lot to learn, and one positive note is the actual legislation actually passed. The president signed it into law, so we can award and celebrate the lives of the 13 servicemen and women that perished on that fateful day, and my heart breaks for their families and really for our country. It's a very sombering anniversary. It's a very sad anniversary, but we're trying to make the best with their memories and honoring them and saying really thank you for your service.
That's right. It is a small consolation, but we hope that it is some consolation to those who put themselves in harm's way on our behalf. But as we continue to reflect about what happened, we are celebrating the 1 year. We are recognizing, I should say, the 1 year anniversary of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, how that went. Over the weekend, retired General Frank McKenzie, he was on Fox News to reflect as well, and he was part of that withdrawal. He talked about the advice he gave to President Biden. Let's play clip 5.
I advised against withdrawing. My recommendation and my opinion, and it remains so today, was we had the opportunity to remain in the country with a small force. I realize the Taliban could very well have chosen to attack us, but I do not believe, based on the intelligence I was reading at the time, that we would have been forced to add more forces in order to maintain a 2,500 force level in Afghanistan. But it remains my position that we had the opportunity to stay, keep the government of Afghanistan running.
And Congresswoman McClain, I want to play one more clip from the general because he explained why a modest force is so important there, and that's clip 6. Let's play that.
At 2,500, we would have been able to maintain Bagram, and that was a principle, that was one of the things that was attractive about staying at 2,500. We would have been able to maintain oversight, not direct oversight, but support for those Afghans that were sitting on those prisons. All of that went away when we left.
Congresswoman McClain, what's your reaction to General McKenzie's reflections about what he advised President Biden and what keeping a small force there would have meant?
Well, I agree with the general. If you look at our position and where we're at now, it was 1 year ago today when, President Biden orchestrated one of the worst foreign policy disasters of all times and really made us look weak on the world stage. I mean, we left Americans, allies, and military $7 billion of a military equipment that we left behind that emboldened the Taliban takeover. I mean, it was a complete embarrassment on the world stage. But even worse than that is we left 13 service members dead and thousands of people really scared for their lives. And the frustrating part is even though it's been a full year since this botched withdrawal, we still have no answers from this administration. And the Biden administration refuses to take responsibility. Listen, we know that terrorists were released from prisons, and with our open border policy, I wonder where some of those terrorists may have ended up. So at the end of the day, the president has members of the armed services and generals like you played the clip of. Perhaps he should listen to some of them every once in a while, because I don't know who he's listening to.
Well, Congresswoman, his reaction, his decision not to take the advice of generals like General McKenzie and his hasty withdrawal from Afghanistan is particularly curious in light of some statements that he made in 2007 when he was campaigning for president in 2007. Here's some things he had to say about the withdrawal from Afghanistan at a town hall there. Let's play clip one. This is 2007.
There's a lot at stake in how we end this war. It makes a big difference how we end this war. And it makes a big difference to tell the American people the truth about what our options are in ending this war. If tomorrow the order goes out from I'm President of the United States, I issue an order, end the war today, begin to withdraw all American troops. It will take a year to get the American troops out. Do you hear me now? That's the truth. It will take a year to get them physically out. Now, if you leave all the equipment behind, you might be able to do it in 7 months. And you leave those billions of dollars of weapons behind, I promise they're going to be used against your grandchild and mine someday.
Congresswoman McClain, it turns out that's exactly what happened about 15 years later. What's your reaction to that?
It makes my stomach turn. What happened between then and now? Don't you scratch your head on that? What happened between then and now? Because this has been an example of everything that President Biden has done has been a complete debacle and disgrace. We'd be better off, whatever the president says, to do something different. I just can't for the life of me fathom what changed, right? What changed? I can't. He knew it back then. The generals were telling him how to withdraw, and he completely went against everything. He might want to start with his own advice. Why don't we just tell the truth? Because at the end of the day, I think that's really what the American people want. Just tell me the truth. Give me some transparency. I don't think we expect perfection, but we do expect you to honor your words and tell the truth. Why is it so difficult for this president and this administration? Because like he said, his words, how we end this war matters. And that's why I think we look extremely weak on the world stage right now, was not that we withdrew, but the manner in which we withdrew.
Congresswoman, and I think you said it well there. It's strange that he didn't take his own advice, not to mention the advice of people like General McKenzie. And we still do not have an understanding of what changed for him. And certainly it did change. Now, I want to get on to another topic with you because you were among almost 100 Republican representatives who sent a letter criticizing the student loan bailout. What have you learned since President Biden announced that?
Well, again, they have no idea how they're going to pay for it. None. And think of what this will cost us, $500 billion. And I want the American people to understand what we are incentivizing, which I believe your listeners to this program understand. If you go to college and you have a right to get a student loan, don't you have a responsibility to pay it back? I mean, think about that for a minute. The people who are paying it back are the people actually who were fiscally responsible and paid their debt and paid their bills. And now we're asking those people and who went to college, and even worse, some of the people that didn't even go to college, right? They made a different financial choice for whatever reason, maybe a trade school, maybe they couldn't afford it. But now what we're telling them is, hey, you have to pay for these people who have debt. And let's also look at the people who have the debt. It's either the elite, which, again, I would think if you got a master's or a doctorate, you would have the funds to pay for that, or you have the other end of the spectrum, which is the people that haven't completed and didn't earn the degree. So again, my mom taught me, when you start something, you finish it. And if you have a right, you have a responsibility. And if you make a deal, you keep your end of the bargain. And again, what are we teaching our youth? What are we teaching the next generation?
It's a great question, and it does beg the question, what other loans will the public begin to look to the federal government to forgive simply because we don't want to repay them? I'm out of time to play the clip, but one other question I have for you. It's been well documented that Nancy Pelosi said last year that the president does not have the authority to simply wipe away student loan debt. What do you know about the potential of a legal challenge to this decision, if any?
Well, I can assure you we will have a legal challenge, because when you're going to put a policy in place with the stroke of a pen where you can put on the backs of the American people that are already suffering with 8.5% inflation, you can, with a stroke of a pen, decide to make a $500 billion decision. I think that needs to go through the proper channels. I think it definitely needs to go through Congress. And I think you're going to see many legal challenges. And I can assure you that this is top of mind for us Republicans. When we get back in session, we've already had some talks about what we're going to do. This is just absolutely ridiculous on the amount of reckless spending that this
Congresswoman
administration
McClain
is doing.
Thank you for joining us. We are out of time, but we appreciate your update with us today. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you. Have a great day.